Now, it's sometimes said that we can fix the population column with immigration. So we'll get some new immigrants, but they tend to bring in their old people and their young. And the profile that we bring in, men and women, tends to match the middle classes of other countries. We take their doctors from some other third world or second world country. There's no such thing as a second world country, but some developing country as opposed to an underdeveloped country. We take their doctors, engineers, nurses and qualified persons and we turn them into beneficiaries here. This is not a model that can possibly work. There are resentments, jealousies and rivalries, and the potential for racial conflict. We now have 20 languages in our voting form. How on earth can you create a cohesive society with 20 language groups? Now, if you're an entrepot like Singapore or Hong Kong, or a dynamic city, urban, industrial, advanced culture, you maybe can do that, like an open city kind of situation. But New Zealand Prime Minister, barring the best will in the world, is simply not that. It won't work. We're already seeing these resentments and conflicts, and there'll be more of them as more and more of our immigrant community are unemployed, and as more and more of the core people are unemployed and see that some of our immigrant persons are more successful in business, and resentments will grow across those kind of groupings. You and I might cope with those things and think our way on either side of those issues, but can you trust that all your fellow New Zealanders will be able to do so? I am not so naive as to assume they can. I think they will not, and we have potential for very great social problems in the future. Not only that, but at the best, all it does is thicken the column. The same problem with the old and the young, but we don't have the advantage of an ever increasing numbers that's denied us. They tend to have the profile of ourselves, apart from some rare groupings, and we've seen how fatal that can be in France. I will briefly outline some of that. There's interesting sideways traffic economically, whatever grouping you take, even this one, but that's about all. And there is a considerable amount of vertical economic activity within the immigrant groups themselves, leading to resentment, jealousy and envy and so on. I wouldn't want to see that we insist that English be spoken in the street, or that every business must be run in the English language. But such groups could quickly become targets for any resentment if we don't have some kind of attempt to integrate and create a cohesive society. I just see enormous trouble in the next 5, 10, 15 years as this economic disaster bites. I can't see any way out of it at all. You look at Holland, which European population is going down, basically, and you have a very small, not that much, that's perhaps a bit too extreme, but you know, it's going down, and the numbers are actually reducing, as in Japan. So this is Holland, similar in France. And then you have a very small group, even if it's only 6%. Their birth rate is higher for a start, so there's a curve upwards. It must intersect at some point. But not only is their birth rate higher, but the rate of that birth rate is higher. That they have their children younger, they have more of them, and they have them in a tighter grouping. They might have 5 or 6 children, 3 or 4 children between 20 and 30, whereas the Dutch are probably having their children, like ourselves, from nearly 30 to, you know, up to 45 over a longer period, and only have 2 children. So you can see that with the added factor of the tempo, you get a much more severe curve and a much earlier intersection, where an immigrant community like the Muslim community will overtake the Dutch community. And in 2 cities, Rotterdam and Amsterdam, it is postulated that by the year 2015, Prime Minister, those 2 cities in Holland will be Arabic-speaking majority cities. And we need to take note of that kind of thing when we buy in to the false notion that as a stopgap measure, immigration is some kind of solution. It is potentially the most massive social disaster you could possibly wish upon yourself. I would like to see Helen Clark and her government prosecuted and put in jail for such a treachery and betrayal of our country along those kind of false lines. It's completely and utterly false. And I wouldn't wish it on New Zealand, nor would I wish it on Holland. When we go to China, we expect to see Chinese people there. That is what is so interesting about China. We don't expect to see Germans or Americans or Polish people there, or something like that, or the place, you know, all the taxis run by the Africans and all the restaurants run by the Indians. We don't expect that in India. And would we be as interested if it were like that? There's almost no point in travelling to some of these other places because you have it all here. You know, I do find that personally interesting, but I do find that my fellow New Zealanders, when they discover the crunch of this economy upon them, will engender powerful violent emotions, I think, that it could be very tragic and fatal for our country. I'm not looking forward to that kind of future at all. We must find some way to roll it back. I don't care how we do it, we must do it. We must find a mechanism to roll that back or to change that outlook. And it's not by suppressing people like myself and discussion. We have got to have dramatic, full and rich and hard-nosed and top-notch discussion about these things without any kind of wishy-washy liberal thinking. That's ended. We do not have that option. We don't have the time.